Welcome to episode 120 of Warriors Unmasked. Today, my partner Clint Malarchuk and I sit down with former professional hockey player, entrepreneur, auctioneer, servant-driven leader, father, and man of faith, Mr. Reed Lowe. Reed will take a deep dive into his journey from growing up in Moosejaw, Saskatchewan, playing hockey 24/7 and wanting nothing more than to play in the National Hockey League. And he did everything he could to make that dream come true. To being mad at the game when he retired, to now loving it again. Being a deep man of faith and leaning on that faith every single day to be the best man and dad that he can be. This episode is bound to take you from sorrow, sadness, heart warmth, and hurt to love, compassion, empathy, and awareness. So sit back, relax, and enjoy another amazing episode of Warriors Unmasked as we sit down with Mr. Reed Lowe.
You're listening to Warriors Unmasked, where you'll hear powerful stories about courage, perseverance, and overcoming mental illness from athletes both professional and amateur, coaches, military personnel, first responders, and even the people next door. Welcome mental health advocates and your host, former NCAA first team All-American and professional goaltender, professional speaker, and life coach, Chuck Thus. And former National Hockey League goaltender, best-selling author, professional speaker, and suicide survivor, Clint Malarchuk.
This episode of Warriors Unmasked has been brought to you by the American Hat Company. American Hat Company has been making the finest cowboy hats for the past 106 years. We are proud to be Americans, and we are proud to wear American hats. For more information, check them out on the web at americanhat.net. This week's episode of Warriors Unmasked has been brought to you by the Shift Group. Shift Group is turning athlete into sales professionals. Is your company looking to hire driven, competitive former athletes? Are you a former college or pro hockey player or former collegiate athlete in any sport and trying to figure out what's next? Consider a meaningful career in technology sales and let the Shift Group guide you every step of the way. Reach out to them directly at www.shiftgroup.io or email them directly at jr@shiftgroup.io to get started today. Are you a business owner looking to spice up your brand? Look no further than Pete Thus at Talbot Marketing. Pete can help you with all your promotional product and corporate apparel needs. From pens to tumblers and polos to jackets, Talbot Marketing is your one-stop shop for anything you need branded with your logo. Reach out to Pete today at 519-494-7629. Welcome former professional hockey player, entrepreneur, auctioneer, servant-driven leader, father, and man of faith, Mr. Reed Lowe. Lowzy, welcome to Warriors Unmasked, my friend. This is a long time coming, but man, it is so great to have you on the show. So welcome.
Oh, thanks. It's actually, watched Clint growing up and obviously played against you and spent some time in the PHPA leadership board with you and helping leading that aspect of it. So it's my absolute pleasure to be with you, boys.
And he's a Western boy.
Moosejaw, Saskatchewan.
Yeah. That old Clark Gillies had an interview on Hockey Night in Canada. And they asked him, where exactly is Moosejaw? And he said 6 feet from the moose's ass. And back then you wouldn't say ass on TV. It was a big deal.
Oh, I think we all grew up saying that because I don't know why sometimes I open my mouth, but I do. And I'm a rookie in St. Louis in 1997, and I'm on the elevator with Joel Quenneville and 4 of the scouts. And the one guy's like, Reed Lowe, he's like, where are you from? I said, Moosejaw. He's like, where is that? And dude, it just popped out.
I love it. I
was like grabbing the boards to put them back in. I'm a rookie, Joel Quenneville, and all these scouts. Joel Quenneville's laughing his ass off, going, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard. And I was just like, I didn't mean to. It just kind of came, it just,
good.
There it was.
Good for you. Good for you. Good for you.
And Lowzy, I think that statement right there really speaks volumes of the person that you are and the color that you bring to the world. And to back it up a little bit, when you talk about Moosejaw, what was growing up in Moosejaw like for a young Reed Lowe?
Really, really cold.
No kidding.
Like minus 50 degrees. Everybody asks me
that. That's in July.
Yeah, this was in July. It's all I knew. Like, I love my hometown. I love driving the streets and going back and seeing the old places, and now taking my kids back and kind of giving them and making sure that I do a good enough job making sure that my kids have an opportunity to be a part of the heritage that we have back there. And just make sure that whenever that they get their families, they want to take them back and they make friends back there and they do those things back there. But for me growing up, all I did was do hockey. If I wasn't on the outdoor rink, I was playing street hockey or I was just playing hockey. Like, it's all I wanted. It's all I thought about from the time I can remember. And kindergarten grade, first grade, second grade, third grade yearbooks. It's like, I want to make the NHL. I want to make the NHL. And so,
Hey, Chuck, before we get into the whole story and of Reed and everything like that, the auctioneering part, like, if you're from Moosejaw, you probably got a background maybe in farming, cattle, I don't know, horses, kind of like me. But at one point in my life, I looked into going to auctioneering school. Instead, I went into horse dentistry and chiropractic. And did you go to auctioneering school?
I didn't. My dad and my grandfather and my uncle are all auctioneers.
Ah,
They went to auction school in Mason City, Iowa in 1974, and then they opened up a used furniture auction. And they did that forever. And then when my grandfather passed away, my dad got into real estate and my uncle kept doing it. So I was around it my whole life. And then when I retired from the NHL in 2007, I got a job with Ritchie Brothers Auctioneers, not as an auctioneer,
yes,
but as
they're huge. They're
they're the
huge.
largest industrial and construction auction company in the world,
Yeah.
publicly traded. They're monsters. And so they hired me to be a territory manager to bring the equipment to the sales. And then when we were doing that, we were still small at $4 billion. We were still a small company. So I had to learn the bid counts. We'd fly the auctioneers in. So it was 3,500, and then he'd ask for 37.5, now 4,000, and I'd have to be on, and now 42.5, now 45, I'm back on. So I'd have to get to learn my cadence. And then Kelly Chase couldn't make an auction one night, and Twister told me to get the hell on stage. I'm like, well, I'm not an auctioneer. He's like, well, you are tonight, son. I was like, okay, Twister. I was like, the opposite side isn't where I'm going. So I got up on stage, I opened my mouth, and it came out. And for the last 8 years, I've been doing them more and more and more. And now I probably do 75 a year. Just charity. Charities only. No cattle, no cars, no real job stuff. I just get out there and help the charities and work the charities.
We just had a real big bull sale here. We had 52 bulls go through, and my wife came and she's like, "What are they saying?" Right. So, Reed, I'm going to give you 12 seconds to auction this pen off.
Okay.
Go.
Who give me $5 for that pen? $5 here now, $5 now, $7.50, and $10 now, $12.50, $12.50 now, $15. How about 20 now, $17.5 one time, $19 now, $20, $21, 21 now, 22, 22, 22 going once, going twice. So right there, $21.
And it's so hard to keep the numbers in your head because they're going up and up and up, and they always throw in there, hey, but now give me anybody, and then they throw in a number, and you're like, oh shoot, what was that number?
My biggest challenge is because I do it on my own, and I could be in 500-600 person crowds at these charity auctions. So my biggest challenge is I'm over here, and then I'm all the way over here, and then I'm back there, just trying to remember where I'm at. And it's a charity deal, so a lot of times I'll just grab 4 or 5 of the volunteers, and I'll be like, just make sure that whenever I'm pointing over there and that person has their hand in the air, you remember who they are, just because it can get to be a lot. But it is my absolute love, passion. I love being up there, helping these charities raise money. I bring the reason why I would never do it as like go and do car auctions and stuff like that is because there's a comedic part to it that I bring. I'm talking,
Yeah.
I'm talking while I'm chanting, and people are laughing and having fun with it. So it is without question my favorite thing to do. I love getting up there and doing it.
You say that's your biggest challenge. I don't know you real well, but I differ with that. Go ahead.
Did you ever think you'd be into that, Lowzy, after your grandfather and father kind of led and blazed the trail for you?
I didn't, and when I first started at Ritchie Brothers in 2008, or it was actually the latter part of 2007, November 27th, I think was my first day. And I got in there and I started to kind of earn my respect and whatever else. they're all like, well, you're obviously going to go to auction school. You're going to go to auction school. And when I was getting hired, I didn't even know I was getting hired. Ritchie Brothers was looking for real estate to put a new sales site in St. Louis. And I got referred to them right when I got out of the NHL. And I retired in July of 2007. And so from there, I just ended up getting the lead literally like 2 weeks later. And I'm like, oh, here we go. This would be a $40,000 or $50,000 commission. That's what I'm thinking. I didn't think I was going to get a 10-year job out of the deal and learn all about auctions and industrial and construction equipment and doing the things that I was doing. So absolutely wonderful company. I've met so many amazing people that I'm still very, very close with today. Ritchie Brothers was one of the best things that ever happened in my life.
Think about this, Chuck. 2 former hockey players, professional hockey players. One's a horse dentist and one's an auctioneer. Who'd have thunk it? Really?
Yeah.
Really. I mean,
Yeah.
it's amazing what we do to survive and do for a living after our careers are done. Everybody thinks we're millionaires. Well, there are some, but it ain't me, and it probably ain't you. And I know it ain't stuck.
I averaged about $500,000 a year in the NHL, which I'm sure was a little bit more than you were making, Clint. And I was the bottom paid guy then, but I was living like I was making 900, so it didn't last long when I was gone.
Let's go right into that. Why were you living over the pay?
I just think that when you're there, you just kind of go, and I had some things put away, and it wasn't as bad as I make it seem, as maybe a little self-deprecative, but the lockout in 04, 05 hurt me. I probably lost close to $1 million in that. Plus I had to feed my family for that time. And then I only played 1 year after it. So I never got a chance to kind of recoup. But it is what it is. I learned lots of lessons, and, just kind of trying to navigate my way through there. I've been really lucky to have some really good jobs after hockey and have some good people bring me on. And, obviously Ritchie Brothers was a really good start for me. And I think that, me and Chuck, we really become close over the last probably 6, 8, 10 months on a little Zoom call that we had with some former pro hockey players that just talk about, it's not being okay. It's okay to not be okay, and just talk about things. And, we've been driven so hard, especially the tough guys, that we couldn't be weak in any way, shape, or form. Right. And to try and understand that it's okay to be like that. So we do that kind of thing. And for me, I was really fortunate because Ritchie Brothers back in 2007, it's a little bit more corporate. Today, they're almost a $14 billion company. And we were only like a 3 or 4 billion then, but there was still a really big, small company. And it was very, very team orientated. So I felt like I went from being on one team into being into another team. And so I was very, very fortunate to be around those people. They liked me, and not just because I played in the NHL, because I never really talked about that. One of my biggest things that I didn't want to do when I left hockey was make that who I was. Like, I'm Reed Lowe, the person. That's a really cool thing that I did, and I will talk about it, and I'm proud of it, but I don't want it to be who I am. And so I would go into my customers' offices and I would not even talk about it. I would just be like, hey, I'm Reed Lowe and Ritchie Brothers. And then 2 days later, they'd call me like, dude, you're Reed Lowe from the St. Louis Blues. I'm like, no, I'm Reed Lowe from Ritchie Brothers. I used to be Reed Lowe from the St. Louis Blues. And they almost loved and respected me more because it wasn't what I was trying to be. I was trying to be something different, which is what I was supposed to be at that point in time.
Yeah. I get that all the time, with my horse clients and everything. Oh, you're the hockey player. And I'm like, no, I'm that old hockey player. Right now, honest to God, Chuck is pulling his hair out because he's very structured. He navigates our show. And here I am, because I'm very intrigued with you, Reed. I am. I just love your background. You're a Western boy, Moosejaw, the whole thing. So I'm like, I like this guy. so Chuck, get us back on track, pal.
No, man, this is fantastic because, Lowzy, as you're talking about this and talking about making that transition out of the National Hockey League, and I know Clint and I have had many a heart-to-heart conversations about this, as we have on our PHPA call with the alumni, and it's hard, and to add on to it, I think the number was you played 256 games, if I'm correct, and I think you amassed 400 fights, something along that lines. Am I right, Reed, when I say that?
Man, I don't remember. That's a lot. I'm not sure. I don't think in the NHL I had that many. I think it was close.
But just
But pro
just
and
in your
junior,
career?
it's in that 350 plus ish.
And and
So
and
it's a
so
lot. It's enough to not remember exactly how many.
Yeah.
But I just this stat I know because I've seen it on hockeyfights.com. I played 2 years in the Western Hockey League, and I think I had 73 fights in 123 games.
and this is a guy that self-admittedly did not like to fight before he started doing the job.
I have never been in a street fight or a bar fight in my life.
Well, you're missing out, man. Those are fun.
Oh, Al Tour. You remember Al Tour? Did you ever meet Al
Oh,
Tour?
Al's a good friend of mine. See this scar?
Yep. Is that from Al?
No, no. I would never fight Al. Hey, pound for pound, like not a big guy, but boy, he can chuck it. And just for we have a lot of non-hockey people that do listen to us. Imagine this: you're making a living playing hockey, but also having to fight. But remember, you're fighting on skates. That's an art. That is a skill that, if you really look at it, it's like, how do you do that? And Reed, you could barely skate, so it was really big
Yeah,
for you.
yeah, like it's even more magnificent. It's serious because, like, I'll be honest with you, like, I really struggled with body contact, body checking because I just didn't have the timing. But my hips and the way I structured on the ice, I threw both hands very well. And Al Tour gave me the best. Al Tour gave me two of the greatest lessons that I took with me in my junior hockey career. First off, he said, don't get in a war of words with guys that order their ink by the barrel or have a microphone for a living. Those are guys you don't want to get in a war of words with. And number two, he said, Lowzy, he's like, you're one of the toughest kids I've seen in a long time, and you're going to do something. He said, don't waste those $1 million knuckles on somebody that's not going to get you paid. And so I didn't. And I used to, like, when I got to St. Louis, I would go into bars and they'd be like, let's go. And I would just walk up to them like, hey, listen, I'm kind of a pansy when I don't have this on. I'm like, but you look like you're super tough, you and your boys. What if I buy you drinks all night and then you guys can take care of me and we can be friends? And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, let's go to the bar. I'm like, these guys are out by tab. And I started to have friends every bar I went into. It was like,
Yeah.
it cost me a little bit extra money, but I didn't have to fight anybody.
Boy, Al Tour. You know what, Chuck? I know this is off the, but this should be after we're done, but he's going to be on our podcast. Hey, Lowzy, he'd be great. He'd be great.
I've got a handful of people. Obviously, my dad and Brad Devine, my agent, who's not just an agent. And I could tell you stories about that guy that would just absolutely make tears come out of your eyes on how he treated his kids. There's a lot of agents out there that just dump them. Brad was not like that, but Al Tour took me under his wing as a 19-year-old rookie in the Western Hockey League and said, I can help this kid get to the next level. And if I didn't have him do that, I probably wouldn't have been there.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great promotion for one of our future guests, Al Tour. Thank you for that.
That's the business.
That is super cool. And Lowzy, you also made the comment that you were making pretty good money when you were in the National Hockey League, and a lot of our listeners, I think they look at high level athletes like yourself and Clint, and I'm not going to put myself in that level because I didn't make the National Hockey League, but they look at guys like the two of you and all the guys that make it to the National Hockey League and think, what could these guys be worried about? What could they have going? They got the world by the tail. Like, what could these guys ever be worried about? But little do they know, there's a lot on the plates of the guys that make it to the top. And I think, you shared a little bit, but I'd love for you to share just a little bit more behind the scenes of what it was like for you when you were in St. Louis and maybe trying to, I don't like to use these words, but I will, but maybe trying to keep up with the Al McGinnises and the guys that the big guys that were there, the big names that, are household names around almost anybody that knows sports.
Well, I think that it would have been impossible if I was going to try and keep up to a guy like Al McInnes or Chris Pronger or those guys, because first off, the skill level and just the greatness of how they were as a hockey player is just completely different than what I was. I was really good at what I did. I had no idea that I was good at it until I was 17 years old when I first started getting into my fights in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. And when I got there, I knew that I had something to do that nobody else could do. And even though I was so scared before every fight, we're talking about the 30 toughest guys in the world on skates, only legal bare knuckle fighting in the world, right? Like there's a reason why they're trying to take it out. It's as barbaric in some people's eyes as a day is long, but really it's not, because there's a reason why we're on there. And there's I tell people all the time, Wayne Gretzky didn't get body checked, and and then when they brought the instigator rule in, Sidney Crosby has been on the IR for two 9-month stints with a concussion. So we can just like enough said. And I think for me is like, I didn't try and keep up with anybody, but I was actually in a charity golf tournament today with my buddy and two of his guys that he played college hockey with from the East Coast that were in town. And they were asking me some questions, and you can look this stuff up, and I've been told this. It's the only reason I know it, because I really don't look it up. But I was in 9 fights in my first 9 games in the NHL, and I was in 17 fights in my first 26 games. And I ended up having 26 fights in 56 games that year. And the mindset for me when I went out on the ice was, I need to go. And first off, at the beginning of the season, I'm like, I have to get in a fight at the beginning of the game just so that I can say that at the end of the day, I could be -2. I could have had 2 goals and been +2. I could have been anything, but I got my job done at the end of the day, right? Even though, and I wanted to make sure that Al McInnes and Chris Pronger and Doug Waite and Pierre Turgeon and Pavel Demitra and Big Wold and Prongs and all the guys that were on our team were 2 inches taller and 20 pounds heavier. And even though it was probably one of the toughest jobs in hockey, maybe second to being a goaltender, it was something that I took a lot of pride in, because not everybody wanted to do it. And so those that chose to do it, I think there was a special love that teammates had for those guys. And I grew up not the most popular guy in the world. And so when I had the opportunity to have my hockey teammates like me more than I had been liked as a kid, that's when it started to kind of come to me.
Reed, Chuck, I got to get this out because I think it's important. First of all, I want you to say that quote again, Reed. Bare knuckle, only legal.
So I tell people all the time, it's the 30 toughest guys in the world on skates and the only legal bare knuckle fighting in the world.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, on a very personal level, and I can relate because I did have a neuropsych exam a while back, and Chuck knows about it. I failed miserably because of the old coconut being. You struggle with that at all yet?
Well, I think yeah and no. I don't know. I just try and be the best I can with it. I forget a lot. I'm not the most organized person in the world, but I certainly don't want to blame that on post-concussion syndrome. But yeah, I think that there's moments where I asked my eye doctor, because my left eye, because I was a righty, so most of the times I was hit was here, and it is like significantly worse tan my right eye. And I'm like, do you think that has anything to do with it? And he's like, I never really thought about it, but yeah, maybe. I don't really know. I never had we didn't have concussion tests before I got this.
Right,
Like
yeah.
it was like this. How many fingers am I holding up? 2, close enough. Get back out there. There wasn't anything. And I was deemed, and I don't know what I can say in here, but I was deemed not the pansy ass if I was like hurt in any way, shape, or form. But I will say this: George the Rock. So I was in 9 fights my first 9 games, and I tried to fight Donald Brashear in Vancouver. He wouldn't fight, and then I chirped in the paper and did exactly what El Tour told me not to do. And so George the Rock was ready to meet me in Edmonton the next night, and George put a pretty good one on me, and I kind of psyched myself out. But whenever George's famous suplex, I had my helmet off and I smashed the back of my head off the ice. I don't really remember the rest of that game. And like, I think when Joel got back to the bench, Ray Borelli came over and looked at me, and Joel's always in a position where he didn't want me to leave the bench, because Al McInnes always used to say, I'd rather have a cutout of Tony Twist on the bench than some Russian guy that was supposed to be on the second line that got demoted to the fourth line. You know what I mean? So just having the presence on the bench, even though there's, it's better. Joel Quenneville did a really good job of protecting his tough guys and making sure that if they weren't in the best condition, halfway through a game, hey, listen, he goes, I'm not going to put you out there anymore, but I do want to keep your presence on the bench. And honestly, and I'd do it again if I had to. If it was a third period and I had to go out there and do something, I would do anything I had to for my teammates. And that's just what I wanted.
Well, and I think Lowzy, that speaks to exactly who you are. You, like you mentioned, you and I have known each other since 1998, and that's when we first met, and we went on a hiatus for probably about 20 years or so, and we've come back together. But you know, I the one thing that you and I have talked about, I think, numerous times is the bond and the relationship between the tough guys and the goaltenders. It's hard to explain to people that don't play either one of those roles or play either one of those positions, but it's a special bond for whatever reason that we have together. And um, I take it back a little bit because you shared the number of fights and all of that. So, and this is something that I think the average person doesn't think about either. Is it's fun to watch Reed Lowe beat the daylights out of everybody, 300, 400 times throughout his career, or watch Clint Malarchuk chase guys around, because if you look on YouTube, you can see Clint Malarchuk beating the snot out of guys, and I think even chasing referees around, I think once or twice. Stay tuned on that one. But um, there's a human side to us, right? And we retire from all of that. And what was, you mentioned you retired in 2007. What was the transition out of the game like for Reed Lowe? Because you went from playing in front of 20,000 people, probably people chanting Lowzy, Lowzy, whatever, because you were a fan favorite. But what's it like when the lights are off and there's nobody in the rink anymore?
Just to kind of address the first part of it, every year, like I was always like the goaltenders were always my guys. And honestly, we always said this. Brent Johnson's one of my best friends on the planet, played together
Oh,
forever.
great guy.
I was,
Great guy.
I was really good buddies with Chris Osgood. Even Ramonko, Roman Turek was good. All the guys, Curtis Sanford, like I could go through them all. I think there's a special bond between guys that are willing to take pucks in the head for 11 and guys that are willing to take punches in the face and the head for 11. So we just kind of got a special bond right off the bat. Just kind of like everybody else is like, those guys are idiots. I play defense for a reason. I don't play, right? So that's the part that I loved about it. And then also for me, like I was a guy that was the first guy on the ice. I was the last guy to leave. I loved all the goalie drills at the end of practice. Like that was fun for me because while I was helping our goaltenders get better, I was working on my skills and I was becoming a better hockey player in the process. And that was good for the team and it was good for me and it was good for everybody. So, but as far as the transition aspect of it for me is, I was fortunate and there's a lot of us guys and a lot of our brothers out there that aren't as fortunate to be able to get a good job with a good group of people that know there's going to be some extra training for you on what, because how it's green as the grass is long. And so for me, it was a little bit easier, but I was a little different because I kind of was pissed off at the game for about a year and a half after I retired. And then I had to take a deep breath and recognize that it really wasn't the game's fault why I didn't play anymore. I turned 30 and for whatever reason didn't put in the extra time and effort and, put the glass of wine down and do all the little things that were necessary to be a legitimate hockey player after you turn the age of 30. And I think that you see it even more and more and more today. It's harder and harder and harder for guys to play longer in their career past 30. You're looking at guys now that, if you got 35, 36-year-olds on your team, like, holy crap, the days of a Zdeno Chara or a Chris Chelios, like, I just don't know if guys are going to be able to put that up. Not to mention that the money's so good, you don't really need to put that up, especially if you're a player that's
Right.
good. So, but I do, and I have seen it, and man, I'm so thankful that Thussy, you decided to step up and put a group together because I know we're helping guys that have had transitions, and it's still a tough transition. It was still tough transitioning in a lot of ways for me because I was angry at the game. But over the years, I think I've probably struggled in my transition of life over the last 6 or 7 years with going through a bad divorce and just hurting your kids just because divorce sucks. And that transition out of marriage into divorce was probably worse than me transitioning out of hockey into life after hockey.
And you have kids. How many kids you have?
I have 4 kids. I have a boy that's going to be 21 next week. I got an 18-year-old son and then got 12-year-old twins that are boy girl.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah.
I typically don't get a congratulations after that.
Yeah.
Well, Lowzy, you commented that you went through a bit of a 7 or 8 year stretch that life wasn't so easy. And again, I want to go back to that because I think for the majority of people, especially you, the listeners, I think they think that professional athletes never have anything rough. There's just a few guys here and there that maybe don't have it, can't figure it out or whatever. But again, what could be wrong? You played in the NHL, you made several $1,000,000. You know, life must be great. Like you can't have anything wrong. What's that all about? So please take us through a little bit of that if you would, just so that every listener understands that there's a human element to that guy that amassed 400 fights or 350 fights, and or the goalie that plays in front of 20,000. That Clint Malarchuk is a real person that has feelings and goes through a lot of things. Take us through a little bit of that if you would.
Uh, you know, my parents got divorced when I was a kid, and it happened when I was 18 in junior hockey. And I, just growing up through that, I had a great mom and dad. I had maybe, Brad Devine, my hockey agent, been telling me I had one of the best hockey dads out there. Great mom that just really took care of me in a good way, even though they didn't get along. And just vowed to myself that I wouldn't do that, that I would make sure that I didn't get divorced. And I probably broke my heart more than I broke anybody's when I got put in a position where that was my only option. At least that's what I thought in the day. And so as you try and work through that, and now you're fighting, and one person wants this and the other person doesn't want this, and you've got all these kids in it, and these human emotions that we live through. That's the part that I really fell into, probably a fairly big depression, even though there was probably a lot of people out there that didn't know that I was feeling the darkness that I was feeling when I was alone. It was a really, really saturated place, and I felt heavy. I was drinking a crazy amount. I'm happy that I know now that I have a better control on when I do and when I don't. I wasn't in a good spot a few years ago, but I think that I'm in a little bit better spot today. I brought some spirituality into my life, which without question is the number one thing that's gotten me to the next level on where I'm at, who I want to be, and what is my next chapter in my life. And so it's a challenge. It's a real challenge, and I think that everybody goes through it, whether you're a hockey player or not. I'm really close with a lot of guys in the Warrior Blues program, which is a military program for hockey players, and they have it in a lot of cities. And one of the greatest things that's happened to me by giving my time to those guys is understanding that PTSD is not something that's only military driven. Every person that's gone through a trauma in their life has some level of PTSD. And for us to just recognize it. And when I started to realize that my biggest weaknesses could be my biggest strengths, if I just loved me a little bit more and just accepted the fact that I wasn't going to get it right every single day, and started to have a little bit unconditional love for myself, and unconditional love for myself translated into unconditional love for those around me. It got my anger levels down. About 5 years ago, I was a severely, severely angry person. Didn't talk to people nice, including my children. I went through a moment probably 3 years ago where I heard my oldest son talking to my younger son, and I was like mad for about 4 seconds. And then I was like, that's me. So then I had to go up and give him a hug and tell him that, hey, I taught you how to be like this, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life showing you that we don't treat people like this, and that I'm sorry for that. And I'm not just going to say sorry because it's a word of pacification, and that you have to change your behavior if you really want to truly be sorry. And so I went through a lot in this last 8 years. COVID was absolutely decimating for me, but it's the best thing that's ever happened to me because I'm a new person today with a new lease on life, and it's been interesting. It's been hard, and I'm still growing and still working through it. But I wake up every morning and I thank the Lord above that I have air in my lungs to go and tackle this day one more time.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And it's yeah, that's amazing, Lowzy, because I know that you've shared with me a number of times that, and we said it and when I introduced you, that you're a man of deep faith, And I think that faith is something that you've learned to lean on every single day to get you through a lot of those struggles that you've been through. And I so admire that because you and I have talked, and I'd love for you to talk just a little bit more about this. I don't want it to be about me, but so many people think they have to do it on their own. That if it's gonna be, it's up to me, and all of this stuff. And I think you and I have talked, like I said, more than once, that if we just turn it over to the big guy, that man, when we let go of some of that stuff, the magic that can happen in our lives. And I just love for you to share a little bit about some of that magic that's happened when you've learned to let go a
I
little bit.
think June of 2020, I came to a crossroads in my life, and I was still verbally abusing pretty much everybody in my path at that time. But I realized that I needed something more human and I had to find something spiritual. And I was not somebody that wanted to jump into a church or a religion or make a decision in that. But I did have a huge love for Jesus. Ever since I was 3 or 4 years old, my mom always used to tell me how, like, when I would color pictures of Jesus in Sunday school, it was always better than anything that I did in the classroom. And as I grew through my life, I just had this affirmation for him in the stories. Like, obviously, I don't know him as a human. I do know him today in my heart, and it's the greatest thing that I've ever taken in. And I just wanted to be a little bit more like him and a little less like me. Like, when you take a look at him, he's unconditional. He's the most unconditional thing ever, forgiving, healing. Um, Battles people's negative energy and anger with love, leads with love, even when love isn't there. And so when I started to look at that, that was where my transformation started to come. Is like, well, if he can do it, I can never get to where he's at, but man, maybe I can get just a little bit there. And
And you're not alone.
I'm not in it alone, and I've got somewhere to take it. And I talk about it all the time with my kids and Thessie and the boys. I'm like, I just take my problems and I set them at the foot of the cross, and we just work it out together. And it's a relationship that I'm almost having, kind of like he's just kind of being there for me, and it's with myself. And one of the coolest stories that I have about this is probably about a year or so ago. Like, I love all music, but I really enjoy, like, the Christian contemporary music because it's very uplifting, and I had some anger issues, like, and I don't know whether it was just because from the time I was 16 years old, I was trained to hurt people, and not only was I rewarded financially with it, I was rewarded with fame and autographs and all this thing, and people celebrate it and all that kinda stuff, and it's part of the game, and I don't really have a side on which I pick because I still think it's part of the game because this is a human life. But from the spirituality side, I had to change who I was, and I had to be able to take my issues somewhere that were safe. And so that was it. And honestly, I didn't trust somebody. I didn't trust counselors because they have no idea what I've been through. Right. But Chuck Thus does. And so when I get on that thing, I can puke my brains out and I can walk away from that thing feeling better because I've got some brothers that are standing there with me. But I was standing there and we had some music on, and my 12-year-old twins, one was sitting on one side of the table and we were having dinner. My older boys were gone, and my son's like, "Oh, I like this song, Christian song. I like this song." And my little daughter, she's like, "Well, Daddy, I love Jesus too." I'm like, "But do you, honey? That's so cool." She's like, "Well, actually, I'm kind of confused. I really don't understand it." But she's like, "But I sure love what he's done for you."
Oh, wow.
And dude,
Wow.
I almost started bawling my eyes out right on the spot. I'm like, "Babe,
Yeah.
I love you so much." Like, what an absolute just 10-year-old girl looks at her dad, and she wouldn't come over to my house for probably 8 months because I would live at 8 and I would just pump, and everybody that was in my way felt the tornado. And then she watched me make a commitment to that and change who I was. He changed who I was. And then she's the one that recognizes it for me. And it's just like one of the most humbling moments in my history of my life.
I have a real good, you're part of the USA Warriors program, the hockey, right? The
Man,
military,
yeah.
and
I
and
coach.
so am I. One
Awesome.
day one day you and I are gonna meet at a tournament, and I'm not gonna shake your hand. I am gonna hug you hard. Mark my words. We're gonna meet, and you're gonna get a hug.
Should I bring a milk
And
carton?
yeah, that's how you'll recognize me.
Well, I want to make sure that you can stand up and give me a real chest to chest hug. That's all.
And then I'll probably insult you, and
Yep.
we'll end up going toe to toe, which is
No, we can't
okay.
do that. We're just gonna give lots of hugs and keep insulting each other because that's just how we are. I love it, and honestly, I love to hug. I love to love. Um, I know that today God put me in this world to go out there and spread love, peace, and joy, and I try and do it every single day. I try and keep my temper, um, away from the evil one. There's two things in this world. There's only really two things. There's good and evil, and what I think people don't understand is they both reside in us, and there's a choice every single day that we have to make. And I'm not sitting telling anybody that I'm making them right every time because I don't. We as humans have to understand that the man died on the cross so that we couldn't. And and when we understand that, and when we love that, and when we understand that we're okay to not be okay, like in every facet of the world, and that if you just have this little peacefulness in your heart, it just makes you feel just a little bit better to walk in that day. And I'm not a guy that runs around and touts it. I do have a tattoo on my arm with him on it. My cross bears outside of my shirt every single day. But I don't sit there and walk around with a sign in the corner of Nashville that says Jesus loves you, stop drinking. You know what I mean? Like, there's a happy medium in life here, and I think there's some people that just don't get it. Like, we got to have like, we're supposed to sin. If you're sitting here trying to be Jesus, you're going to fail at that. And that's going to only spiral you back. He understands that all he wants you to do is just walk a little bit closer to loving more than you hate. And that's it. It's not that complex.
Lowzy, I love that perspective, and I dare say that there's probably not one guy from Tony Twist to Donald Brashear to maybe even Clint Malarchuk that would have ever thought that, Reed Lowe would be talking about, loving a little bit more as opposed to wanting to smash somebody's face in. But it just goes to show.
Don't get me wrong. I still want to see a good hockey fight.
Yeah, I think that goes for all three of us. But it just speaks to the volumes of your faith and how much you've grown just along this journey. And I think it's worthwhile pointing out again that, because people have fame and fortune and autographs and money and all of these different things, it doesn't mean that it comes without any struggles. And it doesn't mean that it comes without any trials and tribulations. And I just think that you're a true testament that regardless of what you're going through and regardless of who you are today, you can make that choice on a dime and pivot and become the person that maybe you desire to be. It's never too late.
When I was growing up, I believed at 8 years old that I was going to make the NHL. Like, with everything in my fiber, I was getting there, and there was nobody that could get in my way. I'm
Yeah, but you thought you were going to be a 50 goal scorer.
Till I got to be 17 and realized that dream was over, but I was willing to do the next thing, right? Whatever it took, that's what I was willing to do. But when I was there and when I was done, I don't know why I felt it, but it just never felt like I was good enough. And I still struggle with it today. And Thossi, a few nights ago, I was sitting with my best friend, Laura, and we were hanging out here. And I was at a golf tournament and I had some cocktails and I wasn't feeling no pain. And we were just sitting around and all of a sudden, I just started crying. I just, like, no reason. We were having the greatest time. And it was just like, I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. She's like, you're healing. It's okay. Let it out, buddy. And so for everybody out there that, looks at me and thinks I'm this 6'5", 285-pound Saskatchewan Sasquatch, which I totally am, I'm going to hand you a piece of beef jerky, not eat you. Okay.
Oh, I absolutely love it. And I love that, Lowzy, because again, I think there's this misconception that tough guys don't cry or that real men don't cry. And I dare say that probably the three of us have cried enough to probably put the banks of the Mississippi underwater, because we've shed so many tears throughout this journey. And I'm never ashamed to say it. I cry at the drop of a hat. I can cry at any given moment, just like you. You can just be sitting there and before you know it, the tears are flowing. And I know Clint and I have spent many times on the phone too, and with some tears. So it's for all you people that are listening out there, it's okay. Just let it go. It means you're healing.
I tell people all the time, man, when you're crying, that's God cleansing your soul. He's releasing it all out. He's filling it back in, and it's all good, man. Like we don't. There's so many things that this world that we live in try and pull against us, you know. And I tell people all the time, I have a Bible study that I do every Thursday morning, and I don't go to church. I love the Bible. I love reading the Bible. It's a living, breathing document. But I love the 8 or 10 guys that show up that Thursday morning at 7 o'clock. We read the scripture. One guy's in charge of leading every time. We talk about our lives. Like we listen to what's going on and we say, how do we look at this and what's going on with us today? How am I feeling with this? We're actually breaking it down. That's my love. That's what I want. You know what I mean? And so be able to have brothers like that, that are in the community and walking around. There's so many more people out there that love Jesus, but are just scared to say it because they're scared somebody's going to ridicule them,
Judge.
whatever else. And I'll tell you what, you can go ahead and ridicule me all you want, but I've been in hell on earth, and I didn't give my heart to Jesus so that I could get to heaven. I did it so that I could be a better person on earth today, and I could go out there and spread some love and let the world know that it's okay to not be okay. And we don't have to be angry at every time something doesn't go our way. We live in a world today with these things. How about this story? So I was listening to a pit bull story the other day. What's one of the most famous stories in the Bible? Adam and Eve. What did Eve do? I don't want to blame it all on her because Adam had his own parts to it too.
Yep.
She bit the apple, right?
There's the apple.
What's the back of that phone say? A half-bitten apple, right? This thing, even though we need it, right? Like I can't get along without it. So I think in my mind, right? But where are we really at? Look at all the hate and the demise and all the cheating, lying, and stealing that's out there in the world today. Guess what? I can't change it by being pissed off at people and arguing with people on Facebook and all the crap that went down through the pandemic or the plandemic, whichever side you're on. And it doesn't matter either side. Because at the end of the day, love will beat evil every single time. It's been proven time and time again. And we're no different. We're no different.
Absolutely. You know, there is a stat for all of you that whether you know Reed Lowe or not, but he is the only player in NHL history to amass a 50 penalty minute game twice. It was so fun that he didn't only do it once, he did it twice. Did you play any minutes in that, Lowzy, or was it literally a bench clearing brawl and you got like 3 misconducts and 3 fights in the same deal, or what? Tell us about this.
Little do we know that penalty minutes that we can amass in a game do not equate to the penalty minutes the minutes that are in the game. So when I was in Calgary, I had 3 game misconduct penalties. I was 10 minutes each, so that's 30 minutes. I had an instigator penalty. I had 2 fights in one shift, once against Bob Boutner and once again one against Robert Aguirre. And then I fought Craig Berube, coach of the St. Louis Blues right now in the first period. So I had 3 fights that game, a 2-minute minor penalty for instigating, a 10-minute misconduct penalty for instigating, 3 game misconduct. So I got 57 minutes that game. And then in Detroit, I set a new St. Louis Blues record with 9 penalties in one shift. And that was the same thing. 3 game misconducts, instigator penalty. But instead that time, I just had the 1 fight and 6 minor penalties.
Okay, Reader, this is why I feel like I really know you and I just want to give you that hug. I was on a podcast as a guest, and the guy goes, how does somebody get, as a goalie, get 17 minutes, penalty minutes, and ejected from a game and didn't play a minute? I was like, what are you talking about? And it was the Good Friday Massacre when I was with Quebec. We played Montreal and brawled 3 times in the game.
Oh.
I was a backup goalie. That's why I love you, Lowzy.
Oh, classics.
That's awesome stuff. No, you know, the game of hockey is, for me, it's the greatest game on planet Earth. The Stanley Cup's the best trophy. And when we won the Stanley Cup here in 2019, I always told people, and I've been in this organization since 96, and I played from 2000 to 2006 at it. And then I was in the organization for 9 years, the minors and whatever else. And I said, when the St. Louis Blues win the Stanley Cup, Market Street's never going to be the same. And we've had 11 championships with the Cardinals, and I think 2 with the Rams. I'm not sure if the old football Cardinals had anything or if there's any other sports that have been here that have gone down that road. But the parade was so basically the parade was supposed to happen, and it goes down Market Street. And you guys probably don't know where Clay, you might know what Market Street is.
Yeah,
It's
I
right,
do.
right north of it. And then the arch is underneath it, and they had this huge
Yeah.
stage set up, and everything was ready to rock and roll. But we were 3.5 hours delayed because the players were getting off the floats, letting the fans drink out of the Stanley Cup. Like, it was the biggest gong show ever. It was awesome. St. Louis is the best sports town ever, and I know everybody says that, but it really is. And when we were offline before we started, Clint was talking about our Blues alumni. We got the large, and I listen. Toronto and Boston might say they have it, but if you take a look at the amount of guys that live in the St. Louis area that aren't from here, I don't think there's an NHL town in the United States that can beat us. I think we got close to 45 guys that live here that have retired here. And some of them, they just came through for a cup of coffee. Gretzky, 39 games, has a house here and spends a ton of time here, has 2 memberships at private country clubs in this area. St. Louis is one of his favorite towns. Obviously, Janet is from just the west side of Illinois, but there's a lot of guys that live here. And when you take a look at what the St. Louis Blues alumni have done for hockey in St. Louis, 5 guys in 2016 off one team in Chesterfield, Missouri were drafted in the first round, and 7 players off that hockey team were drafted in that NHL draft. That's unprecedented in the world of sports. And it's because Keith Kachuk and Jeff Brown were the coaches of that team. Both their boys were on it. Clayton Keller was on that team. Like, it is awesome what we as an alumni get to accomplish here. The amount of charitable stuff that we do, the love that gets given back because of the game itself, and what the fans and the people in St. Louis here love about just people and welcoming people into their community. And St. Louis isn't the easiest community to get into if you don't earn your way in. And when you earn your way into this town, you're there for life. Like, I still sign autographs at grocery stores, can of tomato soup, you know what I mean? Whatever I got to do. Like, it's just the people here are the best people ever. This is my home. Like, I'll always be from Canada. I'll always be from Moosejaw. They'll always be my people. But St. Louis is my home, and I love it here. And I'm just really lucky to have been drafted here and be a part of this community.
That's pretty amazing. Well, Lowzy, I feel pretty certain that we could talk for hours and never get bored. It's probably entertain the guests forever. So we may have to have you back on. And
Anytime, guys.
Yes.
This time I won't cancel and be an hour late.
That's quite all right. We love you, so you're allowed to do whatever you need to do. And but before we let you go, I want to quickly remind you, the listeners, to go to warriorsunmasked.com, where you can listen to this podcast with Reed Lowe and all the others and all the ones coming. This is episode 120. Clint, can you believe that? We started this. We started this as
awesome.
just a little project during the pandemic, and I never imagined that we'd be doing 120 episodes, and we're still going strong. And you can listen on every major podcast platform as well. But when you listen on Apple, go to that top right corner and hit the plus sign so that you never miss an episode of Warriors Unmasked, because it's they're a little different. They've got lots of color, but they always have a great theme and some great lessons. And Lowzy, the one that I take away from this, and I've known you a long time, and like you said, we've gotten to be really close over the last 8-12 months, and probably opened our heart to each other a lot more than we ever imagined we would. Because all I remember is that guy at the PHPA meeting dancing on the bar one night and leading the charge. But you've become a real man of faith, and that really has stuck with me since you shared that with me, and have shared it with me many, many times. And I think that there's probably a lot of people out there tonight that are low on faith. That tank is low, if not empty. And if you were sitting there and discussing with 1 or 10 or 20 people that were low on faith, and maybe the light at the end of the tunnel was off, what would you share with those people tonight to help them turn that corner, just like Reed Lowe did 2-3 years ago, and find that there's a better way to live life on earth as we know it today?
For me, like I kind of alluded to earlier, understanding that there's something greater than humanity on planet Earth that is so much peace, so much love. And for me, when I accepted and asked Jesus to be part of my life, it didn't have like this immediate change that I think some people, because I was very like, what are you doing? But for me, it was like when I finally just opened it up, I was able to peel back the layers of the onion that needed to be healed. And I started to be okay in the skin that I was born in, that over 44 years had started to be stained and shamed, the insecurities, everything that comes through in life. And when I did that, I started to be able to be a light that shined for people. And people talk to me about it today. They talk to me about how I'm different today than I was then. And it's not anything that I did. All I did was just, again, like I said, want to be a little bit more like him and a little less like me. And when I did that, I was given the opportunity to understand what grace is and to have grace in your soul. I made the NHL. I did something that 1 in 5 million kids did. And most people would take a look at that as the greatest accomplishment of my life. And for me, the greatest accomplishment of my life is to be able to accept the fact that I am what I am and that he's going to be there to make me better. And he's going to be there to let me know it's going to be okay, even when it's not okay. And when I started to be able to do that, I started to be able to help others with it. And so I just encourage anybody that needs anything, and it doesn't have to be you want to go to church, you want to do something. There's something out there that isn't human. There's a spiritual world in this world that I am starting to live in. I don't get as upset. I don't accept the negative human emotions that most people do on, because I just choose not to. And human emotion is a choice. And when I started to really settle that inside of my own soul, that's when I decided that it was time. And he gave me the opportunity. And I honestly, as I look back on it through my life, I wasn't supposed to do any of this. Like, I played 3 years of tier 1 hockey before I signed an NHL contract. No, like, there's not, like, that doesn't happen all the time. And I went through a horrific divorce, and I'm still have 1,000 problems that I need to deal with. But I know one thing's right, that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It is what it is. We're living in this world. You're going to be okay. And finding some spiritual love is really, really was the absolute instrument that helped me love myself and helped me learn how to love myself unconditionally so that I could love everybody else around me unconditionally.
Lowzy, that's pretty profound. And I know that this isn't the first time that you've shared that with me. And I urge you, the listener, to look just a little bit deeper into that, something that isn't human if you're searching, because I think there's a lot there. There's a lot that can be found. There's a lot that can be learned. And you're going to learn that you're loved no matter what you've done, no matter what you've been through, no matter where you're going, anything like that. And Reed Lowe, it's a true blessing to have you back in my life. You're an amazing human. You shine a light that is just incredible. And I think probably the two of us would say we'd love to have you back at some point. You're just an amazing human, and I'm grateful to call you my friend. And just remember that I love you, brother, and thank you.
I love you too. And Clint, so awesome to meet you. And sorry for the debacle, guys, but I hope it was worth it. And I'll come on anytime you guys want me to.
You guys are great. I love you both.
Thanks for listening to Warriors Unmasked. For more resources and to connect with Clint and Chuck, go to warriorsunmasked.com. If you feel this podcast has impacted you, we ask that you subscribe and share with a friend you feel may want to hear this message.